Hello, Math 6. How you guys doing today? Today, we've got a lesson which is super duper duper useful. It's also the last lesson we have before our chapter review. You guys are going to take your test next week. This one, it's another that has to do with proportions, finding different parts or different values that we're missing. But this one is highly useful. It's super duper common, and it's called in the book Speed, Distance, and Time. But typically you see this as distance, rate, and time. That's where we're going to see it. Those are the terms I'm not going to call it speed, I'm going to call it rate. That's just the way it goes, and you'll see why. Now, we're going to talk about each of these differently, but it's the same kind of like home formula, if you will. And then we just kind of multiply or divide differently in order to find what we're looking for. So if we're looking for distance, distance equals our rate of speed times time. So if you go 50 miles an hour for 10 hours, 50 times 10 is going to be 500 hours. So this looks like D equals R times T. That's a little multiplication thing. Little loop-de-loop times time, okay? Next one, if we're looking for rate of speed, it's distance over time. Just think, whenever you're on the highway or whatever, it's always miles per hour. Well, per means division. Miles per hour. That's miles is distance, hour is time, or speed is miles per hour. Okay, hope this is making sense. Look at that. Look at that. I've got it right there. Okay, last one is time. How far we travel divided by our rate. So if I was traveling 50 miles an hour and I went 500 miles, I could divide those two and realize I was driving for 10 hours. Okay, a lot of our examples are going to be these word problems. So find the time of the trip if the distance is 17 miles and we traveled 5 miles an hour. So maybe you were at a jogging for 17 miles is pretty impressive, but maybe you were riding your bike super slowly, or you were driving your Prius and you were keeping it silent. Well, we're going to divide. 17 divided by 5 is 3.4 hours. That's about 3.5 hours. Okay. We could also solve this kind of stuff using proportions. So if we knew that we had 5 miles per hour, 5 miles per 1 hour equals 17 miles per an unknown amount of hours, well, we're going to cross multiply. 5n equals 17. Divide by 5 to get my variable all by itself, and we end up in the same place. If the proportion works better for you guys, use it. If these formulas that I show up here work better for you guys, use it. Do what you can to solve these problems the best way for you. So there's going to be a lot of examples where we're just given two of the variables. This one we have rate and distance. But what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for time. So we're going to solve for time. How do we solve for time? Well, time equals distance divided by rate. So that's what we're going to do. Here I set up a proportion, 65 miles per hour over 1 hour equals 195 miles over time. Cross multiply, 65 miles per hour. That's 1 hour. Cross multiply. Now I'm going to divide by 65. And I'll make it easy for you guys. That'll equal 3 hours. So if you drove 195 miles an hour and you were driving at 65 miles an hour, it'll take you 3 hours to do that. Okay? All right, here's some more examples. So if Mr. Bulger, oh, that's me. If he walked 4 miles per hour, how far am I going to walk in 3 hours? So I have my rate, miles per hour, and my time. So what am I looking for? Distance. Distance equals rate times time. 4 times 3 is 12 miles. That's pretty far, Mr. Bulger. Thanks, guys. Okay. Here's our next section. So a cheetah ran at a speed of 60 miles an hour for 10 minutes. How far did the cheetah travel? Now, we're not talking about minutes with our speed. We're talking about hours here. So that's what we're going to be doing here. Now that I have hours, but I need minutes, now I need to set up my rate and my time so that way they have the same units. Hours and minutes need to be the same. So they don't match, but they do relate, right? Because we know how many minutes are in an hour, don't we? So I'm going to rename using miles per minutes. So instead of dividing 60 miles by 1 hour, I'm going to ask how many minutes are in an hour? Well, 60 minutes. So now I'm going to cross multiply. That's going to give me 600, right? 60 times 10 is 600. Equals 60n. Divide by 60. That cheetah ran 10 miles in 10 minutes. Okay. This is a little bit more complicated, a little bit more confusing. But again, if we just use those formulas that I know you guys are going to memorize, right? Because we're good little children. If we just use these, apply what we know, use what we have to find what we need, like in those miles to minutes, then I think you guys are going to be A-okay. All right? Any questions, please comment below or shoot me an email. Otherwise, I love you guys very much. Happy Friday.